Yeah, Assemblywoman Lowenthal, item 7, AB 615. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. AB 615 would align the property acquisition responsibilities of the California High-Speed Rail Authority to other state entities that buy properties, such as Caltrans, the State Lands Commission, the Department of Water Resources, and others. Mr. Chairman, the committee analysis points out that there is some concern whether the authority can successfully manage the processes authorized in this bill, and to some degree, I share this concern. However, I'm working to ensure success of the project, and I believe these alternate acquisition processes are necessary if the authority is going to purchase the property it needs in time to meet the 2017 deadline in order to expend all federal economic stimulus funds. Furthermore, it is because of this concern that I joined AB 615 to AB 145, the Assembly's bill to restructure the governance of the High-Speed Rail Authority. Whether AB 145 or some other bill is ultimately the bill that the legislature moves to the governor's desk, I firmly believe that the authority we are granting in this bill must somehow be tied to the governance bill. With that, I respectfully request your aye vote.
Okay, do we have witnesses in support? Okay, witnesses in opposition? Okay, here we go. We got an individual coming forward here.
Richard Tolmack, California Rail Foundation. I have two major concerns here. First off, the high-speed rail project has, to too great an extent, been in reality a land value manipulation project. And I feel that the participation of, having to go to an oversight body like DGS or some other body, not having the authority vested with its own power to either negotiate or condemn land is a superior position, because I feel that the authority still needs somebody looking over its shoulder when it decides that it's going to condemn somebody's land. And this bill still would do, even if it's folded into AB 145, it would still give the authority too much leeway in determining that particular pieces of land are needed. And I feel that the very act of putting a whole section of the state under threat of taking by the state is a destructive act. And because of this, the current plans are a bit flawed. Now, I feel that there are benefits to using existing state rights-of-way, and these benefits have been overlooked by the authority, partially because they've been assuming that they're going to have a way around it like this bill. And I feel that giving them that additional authority is a negative step, and having it vested in Caltrans, having it vested in these other agencies that have more public participation and more of a good reputation with the public is actually a much better idea. So that's one part of my objection. The other part of my objection has to do with the fact that the authority has had a great deal of trouble even managing basic contracts, simple contracts, and to put them in a position where they are in very complex negotiations and vast condemnation proceedings through entire sections of the state is clearly beyond their capabilities. And this is partially why I do feel that there is a need for reform at the authority. And I'm still concerned that this bill does not provide that. This bill just gives the authority more powers. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Any comments or?
Just that we hadn't heard that opposition before. We hadn't received a letter or anything.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments by members? Members, any questions or comments? This is item 7, AB 615. Yes.
Again, I'm only going through what's in the analysis. There were recommended amendments in the analysis. You wish not to take those amendments?
Correct.
Why? I'm not saying that there's not a reasonable reason not to take them. I asked the same question to Senator Galgiani. In my experience, we work out as much as we can in the policy committees. We deal with the amendments that are suggested. And then when we can, once they get out of the policy committee, we try to reconcile. But what I'm hearing on all these bills is that no amendments in the policy committee. We're going to send it on to some kind of working group. I find that highly unusual, with no amendments taken in the. I think my assumption is that these are the amendments that the committee has worked on and wants you to deal with, and I need a reason why you're not going to take them. This is if this was your committee, you would ask us, if I was presenting, why are you not taking these amendments?
I guess what our belief is, and when I say our, I'm talking about the working group, Ms. Galgiani, Mr. Gordon, and myself. We believe that we should not mandate the delegation of that authority to Caltrans. And the other suggested amendment was to unjoin those bills, and we believe that the governance really needs to be a package. So those are the reasons that we weren't accepting them.
Fine.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Yes, Senator Keogh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say, in the best interest, I think Senator Lowenthal has some excellent points, and we are a little confused about the way this so-called package is moving through. Also, the committee amendments are, not so very burdensome that they couldn't be addressed, later on in the session if the two houses come to agreement on how we want to move forward on high-speed rail. Delinking the bills, obviously, if we come to agreement, all the bills will go, and then also, the Caltrans discussion is a good policy discussion. But if it's not Caltrans, what's your suggestion?
Keep it in high-speed rail.
Right. But we have been over that ground for years, and I don't know that this committee is going to support a standalone high-speed rail authority at this point. I'm guessing. I don't know. But.
It's my understanding that as time goes on with a large project, that may be too burdensome for Caltrans. I think part of having a high-speed rail project, we didn't want to take away from existing and ongoing projects around the state. And the worry would be that this would overwhelm Caltrans.
Well, that's, that's plausible, but, we know
in
that
terms of the
high-speed rail,
delinking, I certainly would be okay with that, and I have to believe that my other members in the working group would be as well.
Well, thank you. That's good. But we could also, I would suggest respectfully that you could take the Caltrans amendment as well as as at least a point of discussion. There are many ideas on the table. High-speed rail is certainly a well-funded operation. I think they'd be able to pay their own way within Caltrans. We may wind up with the Secretary of Transportation that would oversee all these things, or there may be even other ideas beyond that. But at this point, I think the day-to-day management in Caltrans is a reasonable way to go in this point in time.
Thank you, Senator. I think those are very reasonable considerations, and I think what you said was that it should be under consideration, and I believe we would be able to keep that under consideration, because I do, as what you said was, we are hoping to have a Secretary of Transportation to oversee this project. So it sits squarely in the governor's office, and there is a degree of accountability that doesn't seem to exist now.
I agree with that.
The governor's office is absent. I'm just concerned that we don't know what the impact to Caltrans programs will be, and so that's my hesitation. But I do know.
But this amendment, excuse me.
No, that's okay.
This amendment does put high-speed rail on the state organizational chart instead of being off on its own limb, and I think that's at least a step in the right direction. If accountability and transparency and strong links to the executive and the legislative branch is your goal, I think this amendment goes in that direction. So I would just ask you to kindly consider that.
Yes, for that reason, I think it would really make sense. And if that's what we need to move it forward, I certainly would do that. And I have to tell you that as we met several weeks back with the Federal Rail Authority and had many of these discussions about what was happening with high-speed rail, it seemed as though they were contracting out for positions and paying twice as much as they would had they been using Caltrans. So there are many reasons to use Caltrans.
Thank you. So you'd be willing to accept
So
that?
I would be willing to accept that, and I just hope that that's okay with my working group. They're not.
We're going to leave it to your powers of persuasion.
Right. So is that both the committee may wish to consider to enter into an agreement with Caltrans, the day-to-day management and implementation of all aspects of the authorization granted, and to remove the contingency language from the bill?
I am willing to do that, and I think the point that Senator Kehoe made was that moves it forward into consideration. I do not want to say that that's the final decision of the total governance of high-speed rail. I can't do that without
nor
others.
are we asking you. We understand that, appreciate that. But that's the will.
Okay.
If that is the will of this committee, that's why we're in a policy committee.
Okay.
Yes.
Any more
Not
questions?
happy.
Can you read as amended? They're both those amendments she's willing to take.
Yeah,
Yes.
which amendments are
Four.
those?
4 and
please?
5.
4 and 5.
4 and
Those are
5,
the only
okay.
ones I saw.
Yeah, those are the only, we're only asking for 2 amendments.
And so if you would like a motion as amended, I'm happy to do that when you're ready.
Wonderful. Assemblywoman Lowenthal, would you like to close?
With those amendments, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Great. And I think we have a motion.
Yes, I move.
Okay. As amendment numbers 4 and 5. Okay, great. And let's go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
The motion is do pass as amended, and we refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers, Gaines.
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon, Huff, Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley, Rubio, Simidian. That's 2 votes. We'll place it on call.
Okay, that is on call. We need 2 votes.